Hi there, my name is Lucas and I'm going to be your teacher for this module about writing and copywriting specifically. Why should you listen to me? I want to cover that first of all because whenever you get these modules, for example in university or college, you really wonder okay, what specific authority does this guy have? Why should I trust him specifically? Well, first of all, I'm a nearly seven-figure copywriter. And as you're going to be figuring out in this course, you too are actually a copywriter. We call it a scriptwriter for technical reasons, but factually, you do the work of a copywriter. Second, Brian trusts me. I regularly help Brian improve his writing, and he asked me to help with this. Third, so do my clients, most of which are 7+ figure companies. So that speaks a little bit from my experience, though obviously not entirely, but a little. And that's basically it. I mean, that's a very quick little lowdown. So here's what we're going to be doing in the next hour or so. First, we're going to be teaching high-level writing strategy in a way that has literally never been taught in this way before. I've read just about everything on this subject, and I think you're going to have your mind blown. So that means that first of all, we're going to be learning why you actually are a copywriter, not a scriptwriter. Second, we're going to be learning the number one reason you're going to write bad scripts and how to fix it. Third, why fifth grade writing is a lie and doesn't matter, and why you can write as complex as you want. Fourth, the stairway to heaven for dazzlingly good scripts and the four presences of mind. This is my favorite lesson of all of them. Even though it might sound a little bit technical right now, this is going to blow your mind. And then the 5 tactics which play into the high-level strategy. Tactic 1, how to create a unique moment insight for your viewers. Tactic 2, how to intercept your viewers' disbelief and dismantle it in seconds. Tactic number 3, the simplest, most powerful method to increase retention, also known as why YouTubers hold microphones now. And tactic number 4, the crash and burn technique for radically improving scripts in less than 1 hour. And tactic number 5 is easily the best one and ties everything together, but you'll see once you get to it. You'll just have to wait. First, watch all those other lessons, otherwise the last one doesn't make sense. So, lesson 1. You're a copywriter. Act like it. Let's get one thing out of the way. You are not a movie scriptwriter. For example, Marvel's business model is selling entertainment. So, for example, right here, we're looking at Endgame, right? These people in the cinema paid before seeing the movie, which means Marvel's goal, once the viewer is watching, to get the viewer their money's worth. The movie's scriptwriter's larger goal is series-wide retention. They want you to pay to watch all other movies, right? You get into Endgame, you watch it, you get attached to the characters, and then you pay to watch more movies because every time your payment is upfront. Okay, back to reality. You are a YouTube scriptwriter, not a Marvel scriptwriter. Which means that the cinema has already extracted money from the viewer by the time that they're in their seats. But we still need to make that money. And this is what makes you a copywriter. Our goalpost is different. We want them to pay us after watching the video, which is awfully similar to what a copywriter does. So what's a copywriter do? A copywriter's job is to persuade people at scale by writing persuasive texts. That sounds super abstract, and frankly, that is a very abstract definition of it, but that's because there's many kind of copywriters. For example, you could say that you are actually a scriptwriter copywriter. A copywriter writes ads, VSLs, sales letters, and basically all other ad-like texts. You are one of those. As Brian said, every YouTube video is a video sales letter, VSL, which is why I'll try to teach you a little bit of copywriting today and apply that to script writing. So that was the first lesson. A very simple but very, very important lesson. You are in the business of persuading people to pay other people money. That is your job. It is not like a standard scriptwriter to write fantastic screenplays that get people their money's worth. Obviously, you want to give them satisfaction, but there's that slightly more sinister angle to it, which is also very, very important. Okay, lesson 2. The simple reason why you write bad copy and why it's not your fault. Here's why. You ready to hear this? Okay, here we go. Writing is fucking hard. And I can tell you this as a writer. Brian can tell you this as a writer. We have conversations that are hours long about writing. Why does this not work? Why is this just not vibing the way we want it to? Why are we not getting this point across as effectively as we want? And we have those conversations for hours on end because it's a very, very, very complex subject matter. And writing as an action itself, not even like only as a theoretical thing, is also fucking hard. Think about this for a second. This is John, and John is writing. And while he's writing, he asks himself the first question: what did my research say again? Right? He's calling back in his mind to the research that he did in advance. Then he asks, what would my avatar like to hear? What words should I pick immediately, right now, to make my point? Long term, where am I going with this? What will I write in 3 minutes? How should I conclude my piece eventually? Can I foreshadow it right now? Oh, and how do all of these factors culminate? Am I sure about what I'm writing? Could it be better? Does it align with my ideals of writing, my principles? All of these questions are questions that you ask at the same time, that is simultaneously, as you're writing. Those are a lot of questions, and that is very cognitively intense. It's a big, big strain on your brain, which is why writing is hard. And because it's hard, a couple things happen. For one, his mind blows up. Second, we start stalling by adding words we don't need to make our point, which I call micro redundancy. We start picking words that don't actually say what we mean to say. So poor but easy word choices, the ones that don't actually get across the point well, but we know them and they're at the forefront of our mind, and that makes it easy. Cluttering our text with information we don't need, which I call macro redundancy. So not micro, but macro redundancy. So on a larger scale, you start including stuff that is just entirely unnecessary, such as my repetition just now. I didn't need to say that to make the point clear. And once these all start happening, the quality of your text will degrade because it becomes too complicated. Listen, we shouldn't make our texts too complicated by taking our time and realizing writing is hard. It's not just like the same as speaking. Writing means you're constantly facing yourself, battling your tendency to add micro redundancy, poor, easy word choices, and macro redundancy. Plus, you're thinking all these things at the same time. If you look at this slide, it's a cluttered mess. And that's the way that your head is going to be while writing off the dome. The way that you battle this situation, by the way, is by writing more. At one point, you learn what works and what doesn't, and you'll need to think less, which is a good thing. But first, you need to write a whole lot. So take your time. You're a writer. That's a really hard process, and you should realize that. But then, what is too complicated? Right? We're talking about this term too complicated, but I think it's always very, very important to define what we're actually talking about. What is too complicated? Well, here's how you write clearly. And that does not mean at a 5th grade level. You ever get told you're supposed to write at a 5th grade reading level? That's fucking stupid and wrong. Well, it used to be good advice, but it's been oversimplified over time. And this really ties in heavily into how complicated your text should be, right? Because we don't even talk at a 5th grade level. I don't talk at a 5th grade level. And grade speakers don't always speak at a 5th grade level either. But they do have something else in common, which is what 5th grade reading level is really about. 5th grade reading level really means that there's a generally accepted level of simplicity or lack of complicatedness, which you ought to aspire to in your script. Because if you can explain it to a 5th grader clearly through text, you really understand whatever you're teaching or saying. So it's not the word choices that matter, it's the way and the clarity with which you can explain it, which means that the words themselves don't really matter. The amount of syllables isn't the thing that's going to be changing the quality of your script. It's the clarity with which you explain it. So the real question isn't how do we write at a 5th grade level? The real question is actually how do I write so clearly a 5th grader could feasibly understand it? And that is really, really important. The clarity of thought behind it is the important thing. If your causal chain is flawless, basically every 5th grader, no matter the level of reading or the level of writing, is going to be able to understand it. But you have to take it from the bottom up. So a couple tricks to ensure even a stupid child could understand your script. For one, download Hemingway after writing a script. And whichever sentences it says are problematic, ask yourself, if I speak this out loud, does it flow nicely and coherently? If yes, you don't need to rewrite it because again, That's fucking ridiculous. Recently, I saw a script where there was like a sentence that said like, you're going to be working for pennies. And Brian and I were reviewing that script, and it was for one of his script writers, and we were like, is this meant to be simpler? There's no way this is meant to be simpler, but it was. And that's, I think, a very typical mistake that people make when they hear, I have to write at a fifth grade level, because then you think, well, okay, I'm basically speaking to fifth graders. No, you're speaking to someone who is at a fifth grade level of understanding the world, which is very different. Not at a fifth grade level of vocabulary. So saying you're going to be working for pennies sounds stupid, and it is stupid. And that kind of is why I say, if I speak this out loud, does it flow nicely and coherently? Because you're writing a script, right? People are going to be speaking it out loud. So if it doesn't flow nicely and coherently, for example, you're going to be working for pennies, that doesn't sound nice, you should rewrite. For example, the word incoherent might become the word unclear because it might not fit nicely in the flow of the sentence. You can also split sentences up more than you usually think. Usually it just takes a period placed in the right place and an and. So imagine if the sentence was, you can split up sentences more than you'd think because it just takes a period placed in the right place and an and. That's a long, confusing sentence now. And all you needed to do there was take out the because and add a period. You see what I did there? Take a little second to pause there. You can split sentences up more than you'd think, period. Here it's, you can split sentences up more than you think because usually, and then you continue your thought. Periods are there to give you some space and to give the reader and the listener some space. That's a very important principle. They're not really there to make things more coherent. I mean, this isn't less coherent. It's just that it's so fast and we only stop at a period that it helps to help your listener and your speaker stop in a timely manner, which is what we use periods for. You should always do these steps after you've written a script. I know it sounds basic, and I know that so far the lessons have been really basic. But if you don't do it, I guarantee your script will perform worse on YouTube, which is obviously not what you want, because it's just free gains that you can make very easily with a very rudimentary test. Okay, just one more lesson on good writing practice after this, and then we'll get to the juicy tactics. And this is my favorite. The stairway to heaven for dazzlingly good scripts. The 4 presences of mind. This is raw sauce. This is a concept that once you get it, it's going to change the way you write, because you should always be keeping this in mind. Okay, so remember this guy. His name's John, and John's got the basics down, and he knows which questions to ask. But, so for example, what did my research say? Or what would my avatar like to hear? What word should I pick immediately right now to make my point? Where long term, where am I going with this? How should I conclude my piece eventually? Can I foreshadow that part? And how do all these factors culminate? Am I sure about what I'm writing? Could it be better? Does it align with my ideals of writing? And again, right, his head explodes. And that's great. He knows that he has to ask those questions. Apologies. I just got a call from my girlfriend, and I had to pick that up real quick. But let's continue where we left off. So he knows to ask all these questions, and that's good, because that's a good basic level of awareness of, what you should be thinking about while you're writing. And this is technically, or actually often, it's what you learn in high school about, what you should ask yourself as you're writing. Like, oh, this is how you write a piece, and it somewhat helps you. And that's great. But still, his writing is still pretty terrible. And here's why that is. There are different levels to being a great writer. And understanding this will give you a step-by-step, understandable framework for taking your writing from meh to yeah. I call it the stairway to heaven, and it goes from level 1 to level 4. So level 1 is, I know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be using this map analogy with this little character here on the left, and you're this little character on the left. And this is basically like, the lay of the land, right? You know how to explain this map, essentially. You know the raw information. At this level, you're like a math teacher that just gets math. While your class needs an actual intuitive explanation, but you're only thinking of yourself. So, welcome to class. Today we'll be covering the Pythagorean theorem. To open your textbooks at page 45. That's kind of what that's like. It's just someone who's blaring information at you. Level 2 is I know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking to. And that's really important. So at this point, you're like the little guy on the map. I promise this is going to start making sense soon. It seems so childish to explain it this way, but it's going to make so much sense, and it's such an important concept to grasp. So I hope this visual help is going to help. But for now, again, like as you can see, it's kind of like a no, it kind of says nothing, this graphic. You know that the person you're picking up knowledge wise is over here, and you know that you're over here. So to use a more intuitive explanation, now the math teacher, you, knows where this class stands skill level wise, but he still needs to bridge the gap between them. So he asks, what are you guys struggling with? And the class responds, everything. And then he says, oh crap, guess I've got to start slower and explain more intuitively then. So, you'd be like, okay, well, I mean, we have variables in math and variable a squared plus b, and then you continue from where you would usually have picked up. But it helps a little bit because you know where the person is starting off knowledge-wise. Okay, the key to how to explain more intuitively, that's at level 3. Level 3 is I know what I'm talking about. And again, I apologize for I didn't say this before, but there are some typos in this little PowerPoint. I'm sorry. I made this in a little bit of a rush, but I hope you don't mind too much. Okay, the key to how to explain more intuitively is level 3. I know what I'm talking about. So you know the lay of the land. I know who I'm talking to. So you know where the guy is standing on the lay of the land. And I know what happened in their minds 3 seconds before clicking this video. So it kind of means that you are now closer, speaking in the map analogy, you're closer to your prospect, you're closer to your listener. And that means that it's much, much easier to take them on a journey because you can acknowledge that knowledge of, hey, here's where you were 3 seconds before clicking on this video. So the next lesson, the math teacher is like, yo, guys, I know you don't like this, but it's really important because it has actual real life applications, and I know you find that important. So he gives topical, relevant examples to the class with a great hook and maybe even a story. And I use that word hook intentionally because it's like when you click on a YouTube video, you have certain expectations. And the better that your video, your script, hooks into those expectations, the more engaging and more intuitive everything that comes after is going to be. Because if you're like, I know that thumbnails, you click the thumbnail and you click the title, you're intrigued by the title, and the title might be how to never lose a client again. It might be a video about churn. And if you then immediately start with acknowledging the disbelief that title might have engaged in their mind, so you might be like, okay, I know that sounds unbelievable, but hear me out. And that's the first sentence you say. That is going to make surprising, intuitive sense to the listener, and they're immediately hooked. It's kind of like a double hook. Okay, level 4 is where it gets matrixy. Level 4 is meeting them at the intersection of their mind and your narrative and taking off from there, meeting again at each intersection. This sounds vague, I know, but that really is what writing is like, and this is the thing that everyone should strive for in their writing. This level 4, I've never heard anyone discuss this before, and this is why I say this is a new concept, and maybe it's a little hard to understand, so maybe it's worth watching this part of the lesson twice, or this part of this module twice, but this is really, really important. So to use the map analogy, here's where it finally starts making sense because everything is tied together and you know everything that came before. So at every point you're like, okay, we have 3 ways to go. And we're going this way because you're talking to your avatar. Okay, so then you take this route. I know we can go either way here. Let's go left and I'll explain why. Okay, so you go left. I can see you're getting tired. Let's pause for a second and recap. So this is interactive writing. It's the stairway. You've reached heaven. This writing is interactive. It's engaging. And it knows where the reader is at any given time, making it like conversation. Conversational writing is ideal because knowing exactly where your reader most likely stands as you're writing is such an important, essential principle. And this kind of also ties into why 5th grade reading level writing is bullshit, because what really matters is that you're explaining intuitively on this level. Like genuinely, you should take a look at this map and you should remember it. You should print this out and you should think about this as you write, because this has so many examples of how to apply this principle. And no, this isn't a juicy tactic. It doesn't explain exactly how you do this. And that's very fucking hard. But a good way to explain it is that it's kind of like seeing through the matrix. You understand writing is a conversation between you and your reader. You're talking through the screen to your reader. And you understand that they have questions that are coming up, bubbling up as you're speaking. And sometimes, those questions are objections and you need to acknowledge them immediately. Just like here on the map, we say we have 3 ways we could go. You acknowledge that the reader sees that. We're going this way because and you give them a reason that is relevant to them. I know we can go either way here. So again, you're kind of seeing through the matrix there. Let's go left and I'll explain why. So again, that's a very, very important principle, that you understand that they understand you can go either left or right. And you acknowledge that skepticism if it is there, and if it is reasonably there in your avatar, and you run with it to multiply the value of your point, as opposed to letting it deduct points from you slowly. Yeah. So you kind of acknowledge what they know is the meta, or what they already understand, or what they might have as a misconception. That is level 4. It is combining level 1, 2, and 3 into a matrix-like understanding of where they're at when they're listening to you. Okay, important part there again is conversation, which again confirms, okay, I already said this. And you should keep the interactivity in mind. So a great overly explicit example of this is The Courage to be Disliked. It's a book where a guy goes to a philosopher, and basically the entire book is a conversation between them. It literally is like it's like a script, right? It literally is written like a script. It's like person A says, but isn't this weird? And then philosopher says, no, actually, it's not weird. And this is such a great book because The Courage to be Disliked perfectly catches that idea of what pops up in your mind is exactly what the reader, which is you, it's person A, is thinking, and then it asks that question explicitly, and it does so in a way that constructs a very, very strong narrative. And it's an amazing example of knowing exactly where your reader is at mentally. You should keep that in mind as you're reading it. I highly recommend you read it, because obviously a big, big part being a great writer is being a great reader. Okay, lesson 4, juicy tactic number 1. And I know that at the beginning I said a number of other tactics, but I actually ended up reducing the number of tactics to only 3. And it starts with unique plus insights. Okay, back to Brian about ranting about his scriptwriter. I actually didn't say anything about this before, so this looks weird now. But Brian and I were having a conversation where he was like, okay, I just got delivered this script by my scriptwriter, who shall remain unnamed, and it's so not good, and it was so frustrating, and I had no idea how to explain it. Can you help me figure out what's going wrong here? And I talked to him for like 1.5 hours, and he ended up hiring me to do this module because he was like, dude, please take care of this for me. I have to have this issue fixed. And basically one of his big gripes was that he said, there's no unique insights. He was so frustrated with that. And while including unique insights in your writing may seem like common sense, it's surprisingly not common sense. It's way harder than you'd imagine. So a couple simple reminders. Don't just say what they see. Say what there's to be learned about what they're seeing, which is extract the lesson. So speak the benefit of the benefit. It's waterproof, which would mean that you can go diving with it, which is a very simple extracting the lesson. Or number 2, benefits of benefits. So this is a good product because it's cheap. And then you might say, instead, this one will sell like hotcakes. This sounds so rudimentary, but surprisingly, it's actually not. And this is kind of what it means to be in that intersection and to acknowledge exactly what your reader already knows. This is a good product because it's cheap. It's like, okay, I could see that. You showed me a screenshot of the product. You probably had like a screenshot of the product on screen and you saw that it was like $5 and you saw that, right? Because that's what you're looking for if you're looking at a video about drop shipping. If you say this one will sell like hotcakes, and then perhaps you give a reason why, right? Because it's cheap, it's high quality, it has great ratings, it has great product photos, which is very important. In fact, our research showed that products with good profile, with good product photos sell 50% better. That's an insight. And that's valuable. At that point, you're like, okay, I have to write this down. I have to write this down. So unique insights, very important. Benefits of benefits and speaking the benefit of the benefit. That's juicy tactic number one. It's really, really quick. I know that it's a really quick little juicy tactic, but it's really juicy. Knowing that you should extract the lesson, don't just say what they see and what you see, but say what there's to be learned about what they're seeing. This turns information into knowledge and insight, which is very, very important. Okay, lesson 5, juicy tactic number 2, proof elements. This is one that was invented by actually the best direct response copywriter who ever lived, Ben Savenga. And he invented this concept of proof elements. So I've literally taken this from him. I call it proof points, but that's the only addition I've made to this. The idea here is that you're talking to a person, and in order for them to listen to you, you need to have some plausibility that they believe in, that means that they're willing to listen to you and be inspired by you because they know that you're not bullshitting. It's kind of like Bernie Madoff, when he had like the biggest pyramid scheme ever, and then maybe he talks about how to achieve financial freedom after the court ruled that he was guilty of massive fraud. People are gonna be like, I don't think it's very plausible what you're saying, So it's important that you have proof points, reasons why you are credible, and particularly for that Madoff example. I'm not sure if he ever did sell a course on independence, money independence. I don't think so. But if he did, he would love this part of the course. Okay, proof should permeate every part of your copy. Drill that into your brain. Proof should permeate every part of your copy. That's a really, really, really important aspect. So to help you on your way with that, I made a list of all the proof elements of at least a couple proof elements that I use. And they're much, much more. There's many more of them than just the ones that are like, you can, just use numbers in specifics. I mean, yes, that's a part of it, but not even close to all of it. For one, demonstrations. For example, when the elevator was invented, there was one big problem, which was that elevators would often, like the rope that would pull the elevator up, right? They work with like a rope pulley system. It would break very often. And that's not good because people would hear of these things breaking and they were terrified to get into the elevator. So what was the solution? Well, there was this guy who invented a system that whenever one of those ropes would snap, the elevator would fall, but it would fall only like a couple inches and then it would immediately stop. So it would be safe. This made elevators safe, but no one believed him because he said, well, look at this, right? It's a good mechanism. It's made out of, stainless steel. Look at my physics calculations. It's able to carry that load. No one believed him. And for years, no one believed it and no one listened until he was at his wit's end. And what he did is in London Square, I'm not exactly sure where, I wrote about this at one point on my Twitter, he did a live demonstration. He had his assistant. He was in the elevator and he gathered a crowd. And he was in an open elevator with a rope, and he had the mechanism that he invented to catch him a couple inches down, right below the elevator. And he had his assistant first cut one rope, and everyone went. And then he had his assistant slowly cut the second rope, and everyone was, totally in shock that he was going to kill himself. Turns out he was caught a couple inches down, and the myth goes that this changed the landscape of every city worldwide because now we could not only go, bigger, we could go higher. And that really changed the world. So a demonstration is a very powerful way to prove your point. Second, a creative guarantee. So for example, Domino's has this guarantee, which is delivered in 30 minutes or your money back, I think. And that was really the thing that launched them into popularity because they were able to put an infrastructure in place that guaranteed like hot steaming pizza in 30 minutes or you got your money back. It's a great way to let your copy permeate proof. Also because it can be pretty comical, right? Third, why is your take better? A simple, traceable reason. One example that I remember of this is Kleenex back in the day when they were becoming popular in probably the 60s, I'm not sure. They said Kleenex is better. Like their entire campaign was literally Kleenex is better because it has two layers, because it's double layered or something like that. That's brilliant because that simple, traceable reason that was so intuitive to people to grasp made it very easy to buy. And again, I'm giving you advertising examples here, which aren't the same as, script writing examples, but I frankly think that giving you advertising examples and letting you find a way to apply this list to yourself, when you next time go through your script and think of ways that you can permeate proof, just go through this list and go through your script at the same time, hold them next to one another, and find ways to give simple, traceable reasons why your take is better. Well, boom, there you go. Find a way to creatively guarantee, like, okay, well, I guarantee if you do this, you will never do this and this. And right, and that's a much, much better hook than just saying, this is going to improve your lead generation or something like that. Unique, promising specifics, exact dollar amounts, exact systems, very specific pain points. These are great. Stories are very, very good as unique, promising specifics. If you tell a very specifically told story, that's going to make your script that much stronger, particularly if you have exact dates, exact systems, or some very specific pain point. There are many, many YouTube documentaries that use exactly this mechanism of unique, promising specifics. How this 10-day heist robbed Japan of $761 million. That's such an interesting title just because it has those specifics. And as a person, you're like, a 10-day heist, and that could be even more interesting if it's like an 8-week heist. Like, what? It's an 8-week and it's like an hour-long video. You click it because you're like, okay, well, it's an hour long. It's an 8-week heist, 761 million. That's like stakes. It's an interesting timeline. It's so specific. Like, dude, there's got to be something interesting here. It's an hour long. I mean, that's a great proof point. Again, like the length of your video can even be a proof point as a unique and promising specific. 5, a conflicting, riveting expose. This is so typical that, advertisers or lead generators are like, ads don't work. And they say that in their video. And then they actually are like, well, they don't work if this and that. If you have a good, conflicting, riveting expose, it's an easy hack to get more attention for your product. Particularly if you actually have a great case to make, right? If you can demonstrate it, if you have a creative guarantee, if you have a simple reason why your expose will lead to a better business for them. Look at that, right? We're combining them. There's a million trillion ways to combine these. Number 6, disbeliefs that you can acknowledge. This really goes back to the idea of the matrix, and it's essential and is actually a proof point, because if you have to think about it, right? If you know what someone is thinking at the moment that you say something, and you then immediately acknowledge that, you acknowledge that disbelief, and you do that openly, it's a proof of competence, because they're like, okay, well, if he's acknowledging it immediately, and if he's acknowledging it so openly, there must be something to his case, because he's so confident in that. And also, he knows that I'm thinking that right now. So it is a proof of competence. 7, do you have a highly believable source? This is such a simple win that if you have, for example, an amazing research study that backs up your point, quote it. And, fuck it. Just like say explicitly, like show parts of that study in the editing. Quote it explicitly. It makes things so much stronger. Okay. Lastly, highly specific, relatable testimonials. That first part is actually, I mean, it's in parentheses, but it's actually the most important part. Highly specific, relatable testimonials. One good example of that is, I have a friend, his name is Brian. His name is Ryan. And Ryan is a web designer nowadays, but he used to be a graphic designer. And for years, for like 5 years, he didn't make any money online. And then we got on like a 1-hour call, and he literally sent me a message after that. Like, dude, that 1-hour call is the most profitable 1 hour I've ever spent with anyone ever. Because he made like $5,000 in the first month of applying my lessons to him in that 1-hour coaching call. So I think that's a really, really good, like highly specific, relatable testimonial. That's a great proof point that I could use if I was selling coaching. And in fact, I do use that as a proof point if I am selling coaching, which I rarely do, but still. Okay, So that's all that. That's a lot of stuff in just one lesson. So, we're getting much denser here because there's little links between what we learned at the very beginning. Okay, lesson 5, juicy tactic 3, stealing. And this is the last one. And we're going to be keeping this because I think this alone, this entire presentation has so much great stuff that you should repeat it absolutely once or twice, and you should work with these principles every single day, because to me, these are the most profitable principles that you can possibly work with ever. Okay, and really, this is as far as it goes, right? I mean, I have so much stuff that I can share with you. I have so many great tips, so many great tricks, so many little theoretical things that I can share with you about contrast, tension, about themes, about character arcs. I can show you all that, but this is giving you the basics, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Lesson 5, juicy tactic number 3, stealing. That's right, stealing. Okay, fine. Actually, it's called swiping, and you've probably heard of it before. Because some of the greatest copywriters, which is what you are, see lesson 1, every script you produce is a VSL. The greatest copywriters, they have a trick up their sleeve to write great copy consistently. Oh my God, I could not get that sentence out of me for the life of me. Swiping basically means you take inspiration from another script in your niche and you use it as a starting point for your own script. Okay, couple things to digest there. It means you take inspiration from, you do not copy literally, another script in your niche. So another script can be another video, which is scripted usually. And you can very easily find those scripts by going to youtubetranscript.com, I think. And like every YouTube video that's like somewhat popular has like an automatically generated transcript. So it's a very easy way to get some insight into what they're literally saying as you're playing the video. It's a great tool. YouTubetranscript.com. And you use it as a starting point. So when you swipe, you're going to oftentimes think like, okay, this is a perfect recipe. And then as you're writing the script, you're ending up, you're asking yourself all those questions that we talked about earlier that John asks himself. And you're going to end up thinking, wait, that intro is no longer perfect. I actually have a better one. But swiping is about speed of execution and accuracy, because you already know that it's worked once, so you can try to make it work twice. And this also very much ties into Brian's research technique. So swiping, right? So because he always says that you want to beat another video, he's kind of swiping in that case, right? He's looking at another video, he's trying to beat it information wise, and he's trying to beat it packaging wise. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't swipe from other videos to, or at least subconsciously, he doesn't actively do it anymore. But I know that he used to do it when he was a Twitter ghostwriter. He used to do it back then, like a little bit of swiping. He just had like a couple recipes that he knew worked, and that kind of got into his veins, I think, and that's why he's such a good scriptwriter nowadays. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at an example. This is from George Blackman's. He's a scriptwriter. He's great. Let's go ahead and open this in full. I hope that he doesn't hate me for this. I'm not trying to resell anyone's material, but this is a good example of a swipe. Okay, so I shouldn't be scrolling too far down. I'm so sorry. You're not going to get everything from this. If you want this product, the retention up, I think he's still selling it. You should just look it up on like Gumroad. This is a brilliant product for finding great swipes because they have like retention graphs. It's so much detail. It's no longer being updated, but it's still definitely, I think it was like $50. It's such a good buy. This video has the beginning of the video, and this is a really, really great article, so you should buy the retention hub so you can look at the article. Let's see here. I'm going to try to turn off the sound so that you don't get double sound, and turn on. So it says, if you've ever tried to make Chinese takeout fried rice at home and been disappointed with the results, this video is for you. Today we'll discuss the most common mistakes home cooks make and how to fix them. We'll talk about the closely guarded. Okay, so he has this really great intro. And I took this intro. I was inspired by it. Okay, it is glitching. I am so sorry about this. There we go. No idea what happened there. So I saw that video, and I saw that actually from George Blackman's course, and I copied it like this. I said, if you've ever tried to make thing before in circumstances and have been disappointed by the results, visual representation, this video is for you. So here I'm swiping, right? I'm thinking, okay, I have this video that I'm trying to make about why your ad strategy isn't working. And I look at this and I'm like, okay, wait, this, like by analogy, if I just adjust this a little bit, I can make this really strong. So I look into it. I try to figure out what makes this hook so good. Today we'll discuss the most common mistakes target audience make and how to fix them. Tease 1 audio hook plus visual backup angle. We'll talk about the closely guarded secret that is used exclusively by all the best target audience, who are their aspirational target audience. We'll learn about all the tops. So this is what swiping is. And by the end of this video, you will be, so this is a great recipe which you can use as a starting off point, a jumping off point, which is brilliant. It makes your life so much easier once you know how to swipe effectively. But there are a couple side notes that are very, very important for you to understand. One, this works great only if you know the niche. Competing videos. So niches means like the competing videos here of the video you're swiping. Because, if you're swiping a video from the cooking community and then I'm using it in the paid ads community, people are going to be, if this is such an unusual hook for that and maybe just doesn't resonate with the niche, with like the people, with the target audience usually watching the niche of videos, that target audience is going to be put off. So you have to know the niche, know the audience, and know the function of the hook. Because this one, for example, like this one right here, is very strong on objections, right? So, and it's very, very strong on that. And you have to know all of these if you want to swipe something. So you have to know the niche, the competing videos, you have to know your viewers, if they're going to vibe with it, and you have to know the function. So if this is actually useful for the purpose of the VSL, the YouTube video VSL that you were writing. So this one is strong on objections for a low awareness audience, for example. I have to know that because if I am writing, for a high awareness audience with low amounts of objections, this is not going to work, right? Because this one is strong on objections for a low awareness audience. So that's like the opposite of what I'm trying to do here. Okay, let's take another example of swiping. Creator hooks is like a $30 a month subscription, and it has this system of grading. This is from the old creator hooks, grading hooks, right? So like here's the title of this video, Bronny James finally did it. And then this is the thumbnail. And it has this score, 22,000, 19,000, 18,000, 16,000. So you go on here. This is a great place to find swipes because it has all this stuff and it has all these formulas. This is great for swiping, but you have to realize the caveat there, which is this. The first one would work terribly in a business market. Authority figure finally did it. It's just not the kind of thing that a business market would vibe with. I can already tell. How I achieved goal on my own, 5 practical tips. This is not a good hook to use for done for you offers. It's maybe good for coaching offers, but not good for done for you offers. And again, you're writing a VSL, right? You're trying to extract an action from the person. So you have to think about all this stuff. So problem, 4 common mistakes to avoid. This might be too general for higher awareness audiences. So for example, this one says food sticking to stainless steel pans, 4 common mistakes to avoid. It's like, for this specifically, it's good, but this might be too general of a hook. And the last one, I remade entity in similar but different entity. I saw a video that was like, I made graphic design in 5 programs not meant for graphic design. That's like a great example, but it's entertainment. It's good for gaming-like videos, but again, for business things, this is terrible. So with swiping, you have to be very aware of these 3 things: niche, audience, and function. Very, very important for swiping, but it can be a super useful tool. If you want to swipe, always make sure you're first operating on level 4 of the stairway of heaven of writing. This is a good rule of thumb. So you have to be kind of in that matrix sphere. I'm going to go all the way back. Here we go. Meeting them at the intersection of their mind and your narrative and taking off from there. So you have to be very well researched in order to swipe very effectively. And you have to know, again, those 3 important parts of the recipe: niche, audience, function. Niche, audience, function. Drill that in your head for swiping. Okay, this was my theoretical outline of writing. This was over 100 swipes, over 100 slides. I hope you really enjoyed it. I'm going to be editing this together now for you. And yeah, good luck with your writing adventure, whoever's listening to this.